of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we'll see the lengths some communities in northern Nigeria are willing to go to protect themselves as the region continues its struggles against militancy. This is Africa Live. Hello and thank you for joining us. I am Peninah Karibe. Joining me in studio with a look at what's coming up in business news is Rama.
Thank you very much, Peninah. Here's what's coming up in the next half hour. Goldman Sachs sees a flurry of deals for South Africa as the economy is benefiting from a combination of structural reforms and much higher commodity prices. And in aviation, Ethiopian Airlines, the largest carrier on the continent, is reporting a 14% rise in half-year profits. We'll have the data and the details on those stories and lots more in the next 30 minutes. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Peninah.
Thank you, Rama. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with primary-level officials and residents in Beijing during a two-day inspection tour ahead of this year's Spring Festival holiday, which begins next week. President Xi, who's also General Secretary of the Communist Party of China Central Committee and Chairman of the Central Military Commission, wished them good health, career success and family happiness. He also wished the country peace and prosperity in the upcoming year of the horse.
On Monday morning, Xi visited a national innovation park in Beijing's E-Town, a key hub for China's technology development. He learned about advances in information technology, artificial intelligence and robotics, and spoke with representatives. Xi said scientific and technological self-assurance is central to China's modernization drive and called on Beijing to make greater contributions through innovation. On Tuesday morning, Xi visited the Wulao Xinjie Elderly Care Service District in Beijing's Xicheng District. It integrates multiple community-based services and has undergone upgrades to improve accessibility. Xi learned about community-based elderly care services, including meal support and daily assistance, and spoke with local residents and service staff. He stressed that respecting and caring for the elderly is a shared responsibility of society and called for coordinated efforts to improve elderly care services. During the visit, Xi also interacted with delivery workers resting in the area, asking about their work and living conditions and acknowledging their contributions to urban services. Xi later visited the Yinling Senior Apartment, where he learnt about healthcare services, rehabilitation programs and daily care for elderly residents. He spoke with seniors taking part in Spring Festival activities, encouraging them to stay active and engaged, whilst wishing them a good health and a happy holiday. Later that day, Xi toured the Longfusi neighborhood in Beijing's Dongcheng district. The area has been revitalized into a pedestrian-friendly commercial zone that blends traditional culture with modern business. Xi observed the streetscape and learned about progress in urban renewal. He visited a long-established local pastry brand, encouraging the preservation of time-honored businesses. With the Spring Festival approaching, a New Year market nearby attracted large crowds. Xi visited market stores, spoke with people and observed holiday preparations. He said ensuring sufficient market supply, public safety and stable services during the holiday period is essential so that people can celebrate the Spring Festival in a joyful and secure environment. During the inspections, Xi also listened to briefings from Beijing municipal authorities. He called on the city to align its development with national strategies and continue improving governance and public services. Xi emphasized that Beijing should set an example in advancing modernization, innovation-driven development, and people-centered urban governance.
To the Sudan conflict, and the UK's acting ambassador to the United Nations has condemned recent drone strikes across the country. James Kariuki was speaking during a media briefing ahead of a Security Council meeting on Monday. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk said such fatal strikes, which have resulted in over 90 civilian deaths in the past 2 weeks, continue despite the Sudanese army's claims of ending intense RSF sieges in the Kordofan region. He said that drone strikes on civilians by both sides continue. Greater Kordofan, a region comprising 3 states, has emerged as the latest frontline in Sudan's nearly 3-year conflict. Among the many communities impacted by the ongoing war is Sudan's sizable nomad community. According to the country's last census, conducted almost 20 years ago, about 7% of Sudan's population claim such a pastoral lifestyle. Many say they're unable to live as before, with their operations disrupted amid constant threats of bandits and ethnic violence. CGTN's Crystal Onkeo reports.
Stranded near the central city of Al Obeid, Gubara al-Bashir recalls better days in the past. He and his family have been traversing Sudan's desert with their camels and livestock for years. But with the ongoing civil war, the threat of violence and growing ethnic animosity forces him to stay here.
In the past, no one will stop a person or a nomadic tribe's caravan, nor will anyone say, this person is from this region or that region. A caravan was a caravan. A market was a market. A street was a street. We used to be able to move as we wanted. Now, there's no choice and no side accepts you.
He is among a group of nomads stuck in the desert.
In the past, the market was more open and the situation wasn't like it is now. There are so many problems now. We can't go anywhere, and if we do, the enemy will take our livestock. Now, we are only confined to Al Obeid.
The ongoing conflict between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces has displaced nearly 14 million people, incited ethnic violence, and led to increased famine and disease. According to a local researcher, Ibrahim Juma, the turmoil has disrupted the balance of land usage and livestock routes essential for the nomads' survival.
The safe zone for nomads narrowed. Secondly, their economic life was greatly affected because many of the market areas where they shopped fell in the zone with security problems, reducing their dealing with markets except for those in the city of Al Obeid.
These nomads also have to contend with rampant livestock theft by bandits. The RSF, linked to past atrocities in Darfur, has been accused by the US and rights groups of committing genocide against non-Arabs during this conflict. While the RSF has allied with certain Arab tribes, some tribes remain uninvolved in the conflict. Calls for social reconciliation and the rule of law are growing amid the chaos as violence continues to fracture the community. Crystal Onkeo, CGTN.
The African Union has called for a ceasefire in the volatile eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. This follows a meeting between senior AU officials involved in mediating the peace process for the region. They include the current AU chair, Angola's President João Lourenço, and Togo's President Faure Gnassingbé, who's the bloc's designated leader of the process. Former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo and the current Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi were also present. Lourenço called on the warring parties to accelerate the implementation of a ceasefire monitoring mechanism agreed in Qatari-led talks between the DRC government and M23 rebels. Qatar has been mediator for several months, and a commitment towards a ceasefire was signed in July. In a parallel effort, DRC and Rwanda, who's alleged to support the M23, formalized a US-brokered peace deal in Washington in December. We now speak to our correspondent, Jafar Al-Katanti, joining us via Zoom from Goma. Jafar, fighting is still ongoing despite both the government and M23 agreeing to accelerate the implementation of the ceasefire mechanisms. What are authorities and residents saying about this?
Authorities at both sides, FRDC, the government, and the AFC M23 are saying that they are doing all they can to the implementation of this ceasefire. But unfortunately, on ground, we are still seeing operation continuing, like in the high zone of Uvira, such as Minembwe zone, where fighting are still ongoing. Today, the FRDC announced the takeover of a new zone in that zone. So people in ground here, they don't believe at this ceasefire because it won't be the first time that the government of DRC and the AFC M23 sign a peace deal, but they often not respect it, both sides. And this is what people are not thinking about, are not believing in because we are now at like 20 ceasefire when they started at Nairobi, then Luanda, then Doha, then Washington. Then now they are one more time in Doha and Luanda, and people are now like fed up of this signature. They just want peace. They just want the hostilities to be quieted.
Well, Jafar, we do know that a ceasefire monitoring team is expected to arrive in Uvira. And you have mentioned that the communities there don't really believe in these efforts. But talk to us about this latest development. How are people there responding to it, this committee that is expected to come? And what should we expect once the team is on the ground?
In Uvira, people are welcomed this team, but they want them to come with a solution. Not as it was with the East African Community Regional Force, but they want someone who will bring the solution. You know, Uvira was taken by 23, but now Uvira is with Wazalendo and FRDC. But Uvira is like isolated. Just Sange, a city at 20-something kilometers north of Uvira, is still occupied by M23. People in Uvira can't reach Sange. So they want someone who will bring a solution, not someone who will just come and stay with them in Uvira. And this must not be only in Uvira, because if this team just come in Uvira, how about other zones occupied by rebels? How about other zones where fighting are still ongoing? So locals of Eastern DRC want someone who will bring a solution, a really peace solution, not someone who will come and stay like it was MONUSCO, like it was the East African Regional Force.
Jafar, we appreciate that. Thank you very much for talking to us. Jafar Al-Katanti joining us there from Goma. Let's head to Nigeria now, where police say gunmen seized 9 worshippers from a Catholic church during Sunday night prayers in Benue State. It happened in the Ado local government area. Benue State is part of Nigeria's so-called Middle Belt region, which has seen clashes between farmers and herders over land and natural resources. However, it's also at the center of a surge in cases of kidnapping for ransom by armed gangs that forced the government to declare a nationwide security emergency in November last year. Nigeria is roughly evenly split between a mostly Christian south and Muslim majority north, and is home to myriad conflicts, which experts say kill both Christians and Muslims, often without distinction. And staying in Nigeria, last week's attack on a separate town in northern Katsina State was another example of the region's struggle with insecurity. Yet that attack was different in an important way. It happened despite an agreement between locals and armed groups to keep the peace. This isn't something the police encourage, but as CGTN's David Mbithi now reports, it shows the lengths some communities are willing to go to protect themselves.
When leaders from Doma town in Nigeria's northern Katsina state struck a deal with local gunmen last September, everyone hoped that will end the threat of attacks and they will go about their business in peace and security. They were wrong. The agreement seemed to be holding until last Tuesday. Survivors recall how men from the same gang went from house to house, carrying out a massacre. 21 people were killed. The breakdown of the deal has brought a lot of anger to the community.
We are tired of these attacks by bandits. They have been terrorizing our community. They denied us access to our farmland. We don't have anything. We didn't harm them. We didn't do anything to them, but they denied us peace.
The deal is said to have been born from a series of meetings last July. Sources say the gunmen pledged to end attacks, release 400 kidnapped villagers, and not carry weapons or wear military uniforms. According to a source familiar with the arrangement, in return, an undisclosed sum of cash delivered in a sack was paid to the armed group. They say it all fell apart in mid-January when the armed group accused residents of killing one of their members. Then the retaliation came.
Despite the peace agreement and ongoing dialogue, the bandits have returned and killed more than 100 people since the agreement was made. We have lost hope. We are unable to travel safely from Tofoki to Doma or Kwanadoka.
The country's defense minister has previously warned against engaging in peace deals with bandits, describing such arrangements as counterproductive and harmful to Nigeria's security efforts. It's a view that's shared by experts who say more decisive action is needed to address the country's complex security crisis.
You cannot have a peace deal if the criminal is still in possession of the weapons that he can use to kill people. Go after these criminal elements in their bases, and we know their bases. They are forested parts in most part of northern Nigeria. Go after them at their bases. Deny them the ability to occupy those bases and places, and then work with the local communities, the residents, to enhance their security posture.
The Nigerian government has in recent months stepped up its military operations to flush out criminals nesting in forested parts of the north. But still the attacks and abductions continue, and many communities feel they have no option, as dangerous a proposition as it can be, but to try to find a solution themselves. David Mbidi, CGTN.
To Guinea now, where media reports say heavy security has been deployed to the central prison in the capital Conakry following heavy gunfire in the morning. Local residents say the shooting began shortly before 9 a.m. and lasted for about 30 minutes. Authorities say a prisoner, Commander Abubakar Sidiki Diakite, also known as Tumba, was being transferred to the Ikoya Central Prison in a move meant to preserve public order and the safety of prisoners and staff. It comes a day after they held a surprise inspection at the prison and seized several contraband items, including mobile phones and bladed weapons. However, Diakite is reported to have resisted the search and became aggressive. Diakite has been serving his 10-year prison sentence from July 2024 in connection with the stadium massacre in Conakry back in 2009. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has called on all parties to take urgent steps towards de-escalation amid the precarious situation in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. That's due to recent fighting between the Ethiopian army and regional forces there. On Monday, Eritrea rejected claims by Ethiopia that its troops are working with the regional forces and making incursions across their shared northwestern border. However, Eritrea calls the claims false and fabricated, saying they are part of a hostile campaign by Addis Ababa. Eritrea has also taken issue at repeated assertions by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed that landlocked Ethiopia has a right to sea access. This has been seen by many in Eritrea, which lies on the Red Sea, as a threat of military action. A spokesperson for Volker Turk says the UN is worried the volatile situation in Tigray may deteriorate.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, calls on all parties to take urgent steps towards de-escalation amid the precarious situation in the Tigray region. Recent fighting between the Ethiopian army and regional forces has highlighted the risk of a deepening human rights crisis in the north of the country. The situation remains highly volatile, and we fear that it will deteriorate, worsening the region's already precarious human rights and humanitarian situation.
It's 19 minutes into the hour. You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington on Wednesday to discuss negotiations with Iran. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington on Wednesday to discuss negotiations with Iran. The pair had been expected to meet on February 18th, but the talks were brought forward amid the renewed engagement with Iran. A spokesperson for Netanyahu did not immediately comment on the reschedule. Last June, the U.S. joined an Israeli military campaign against Iran's uranium enrichment and other nuclear installations, marking the most direct American military action ever against the Islamic Republic. Iran retaliated by launching a missile attack on a U.S. base in Qatar. The U.S. and Israel have repeatedly warned Iran that they would strike again if Tehran presses ahead with its enrichment and ballistic missile programs. Our correspondent Ehsan Kaivani reports from Tehran.
Under the current circumstances, Iran is doing its best to prevent a war, although it says it is ready for even the worst scenarios. Tehran says to prove the world that it is not pursuing nuclear weapons, it will take all the necessary measures. But Tehran at the same time firmly says that it will not agree to stop uranium enrichment at all. And it also insists that it will not allow the removal of the already 60% enriched uranium from Iran. And that could be the reason it wants to dilute it inside Iran. We should see if the United States will be satisfied with such an offer, or it will insist on the permanent dismantling of uranium facilities inside Iran. Ali Larijani is the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, and in many areas he has more authority than the foreign minister. His presence in Muscat is meaningful now. According to what we hear in Tehran, he has transferred Iran's official response to the February 7th negotiations in Muscat. We don't have official details about the objectives of this trip or what the agenda is, but it could be a sign for Iran's willingness to have fruitful results out of the negotiations with the United States. Iran insists, at least for now, that the negotiations with the United States must be indirect. At the same time, Iran strongly trusts Oman as a mediator, and that is why Iranian authorities can make sure that messages are transferred in the best possible way, where Iran's regional rivals are not present and there are no worries for any possible influences that could harm the negotiations.
Health officials in Gaza say 5 people were killed in Israeli airstrikes and gunfire on Tuesday, the latest violence to undermine a 4-month-old U.S. brokered truce in the enclave. This comes a day after Israeli forces killed 4 militants in the southern city of Rafah after they emerged from an underground tunnel and opened fire on troops. Meanwhile, 8 trucks continue to move towards Egypt's Rafah border crossing with Gaza. Its limited reopening last week was a key element of U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to end the Israel-Hamas war. Since the Gaza war broke out in October 2023, thousands of injured Palestinians have received treatment in neighboring Egypt. CGTN's Yasser Hakim met one couple who had to leave their children behind with other relatives and, despite the ceasefire, are now unable to return due to Israeli restrictions.
Rafiq arrived in Cairo not long after the outbreak of the Gaza war in late 2023. He needed work on his kidneys and heart.
I was treated on my kidneys at Zayed Hospital in Cairo and then transferred to another hospital for my heart issues. The surgery and medication here have helped me avoid any more dialysis which I had taken in Gaza.
The horrors of the war have left their mark on his wife's face. A 35-year-old who had to leave her 3 children behind in Gaza. She's desperate to get back, but Israeli restrictions make that impossible for now.
We were told we will only stay for 15 days for treatment, but till now, we aren't able to go back. My children are in Gaza, my mom and brothers. A couple of my uncles and cousins were martyred in the war, and I fear for my children.
More than 10,000 Palestinian patients have been evacuated from Gaza, where the medical infrastructure has been destroyed by Israeli forces. Dr. Amgad Al-Haddad has been treating many of these victims.
After the war, the cases I received were critical chest allergies. The bombings, the smoke, dust, debris, and chemicals have led to many cases of acute inflammation in the airway, lungs and chests, asthma. Then you have thousands of critical injuries and burns from the bombings, as well as cancer and kidney failure patients.
Most injuries are critical. They include the loss of limbs, fractured bones, and eye injuries by Israeli snipers, especially for children. Even amidst the devastation in Gaza, Rafiq has registered to return home after the recent reopening of the Rafah border crossing.
When I went to the embassy to fill the forms, they told me 38,000 Palestinians have applied to go back, and Israel is only allowing 50 per day.
It's a long process for now, but Rafiq and his wife are eagerly awaiting the green light to be allowed back to reunite with their children. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo, Egypt.
To Benin, where the 4th edition of the International Women's Film Festival has just concluded in the port city of Cotonou. Held under the theme, Women, Free Your Creativity, organizers said they then provided a platform to celebrate African women in cinema and their artistic expressions. Participants also immersed themselves in screenings, masterclasses and training sessions during the 5-day event. CGTN's Sofia Shimechero has more.
The finale of the International Women's Film Festival was marked with a high-energy celebration crowning new Amazons. The grand prize, also known as Amazon d'Or, was awarded to Nigerian director Abesi Akami.
This is my second time in Benin, and this is by far my best time here in Benin. The festival is so organized. Cornelia, the festival director, is so giving, so welcoming, and she genuinely cares about African women filmmaking. So this festival is wonderful. I highly encourage African women with stories to definitely apply for the next one.
The 5-day festival featured 18 films representing 15 different African countries reviewed by a dedicated selection committee. Participants believe Akemi's win from the diverse lineup was well-deserved.
She was my teacher for 8 months. We did a training course and she taught us a lot about production. To have won this Golden Amazon Award in my country, Benin, it's an honor for us and it proves how talented she is. We are proud.
4 other awards recognized different aspects of filmmaking.
I am very happy and very proud to receive the Best Performance Award for my first film. It represents recognition for this film, which has been on its journey for a while now. It's always nice to see that audiences have enjoyed the film, and above all, that such an exceptional jury as the one we had here recognized the talent of my lead actress in this film.
The biennial event was founded in 2019 by filmmaker Cornelia Glele and has since engaged with over 1,000 film practitioners. Organizers say it continues to establish itself as a space where the future of African women's cinema can take shape. Sofia Shimechero, CGTN.
Events to mark China's annual Spring Festival are ongoing across several African nations. Senegal held a colorful gala in the capital, Dakar. The event brought together senior government officials, diplomats and industry leaders and featured cultural performances by young people from both Senegal and China. Officials said the gala reinforced the enduring partnership between China and Senegal, one that's anchored on mutual trust and sincerity. The Secretary of State for Senegalese abroad thanked China for its continued support in assisting the Senegalese government with the implementation of its development policy outlined in the Vision Senegal 2050 agenda.
China's commitment to Senegal since the institutionalization of Sino-Senegalese diplomatic relations in 1971 testifies to the privileged relationship between our two countries and to the dynamism of the partnership despite a challenging geopolitical context and multifaceted crisis that remind us of the need to uphold our vision of multilateral cooperation and promote international peace and security. This is essential for stability in addressing global challenges and building harmonious development and shared prosperity worldwide.
Meanwhile, in Lusaka, the Chinese Embassy and the Zambian Ministry of Tourism co-hosted a traditional Chinese temple fair in Lusaka. The event was marked by cultural performances, including dragon and lion dances, martial arts, and ethnic song and dance. A promotional video for the CMG Spring Festival Gala 2026 also brought a strong festive atmosphere. Organizers said a cultural interaction area offered experiences such as paper cutting and calligraphy, attracting enthusiastic participation from those present. Vice President Mutale Nalumango extended New Year greetings to the Chinese people on behalf of the nation.
We wish the Chinese people a happy New Year, which represents the horse. That's what I was told. Indicating vitality, indicating strength, indicating freedom, indicating mobility forward, indicating success. And indeed, we wish the new year to be a very successful year for the Chinese people and together with us, because you are in China, Zambia.
This experience has been one of the best experiences because I've learned a lot, especially like there has been cultural exchange. Yeah, so back then we didn't know like meaning of the paintings, but being in this place with the Chinese, I've come to understand the meaning of some paintings. Yes, how to use chopsticks. Yes, and a lot of stuff.
As the Year of the Horse gallops into view, a Chinese designer who was herself born in this zodiac year is putting a fresh spin on how we view this cherished beast of burden, one jewel at a time. CGTN's Shenli has more.
Well, most envision the horse as spirited and galloping. Designer Zhang Jiling paints a strikingly different picture.
我觉得应该是 INFJ 吧.
If my jewelry had an MBTI, the horse would definitely be an INFJ, introverted and thoughtful. Meanwhile, I am an ENFP, your classic happy-go-lucky pup. So, in a way, they balance me out.
马年来说，因为我本身属马，然后马给我的
As a horse in the zodiac myself, the year of the horse feels like a time to return to my true self and break through barriers. While horses are often seen as spirited and energetic, I believe they can also be calm and understated. My designs capture that grounded, gentle energy, because who doesn't want to embrace a little more emotional stability these days?
今年设计的就马的这个系列呢，其实马的形象
For this year's collection, I've stayed true to my core philosophy, blending traditional Chinese motives with contemporary Western jewelry design. Take this choker, for example. The horse's body is inspired by the soft, flowing lines of Tang Dynasty pottery, while its head features sharp geometric shapes. It's a beautiful mix of curves and edges, proving that harmony can exist in contrast. And yes, it's shaped like a heart within a heart, subtle, symbolic, and totally unisex. Beyond thoughtful design, these pieces carry also playful wishes for the new year.
今年出了一组马上赢系列，那我们
Horse Wins series are packed with lighthearted blessings. May wealth come soon. Fortune arrives swiftly. Good luck gallop your way. Let's be real. With young people today diving into self-care life hacks and good fortune charms, what better way to kick off the Chinese New Year with horse-themed accessories? These wishes may be rooted in tradition, but they come wrapped in modern style.
其中一款手镯是
Take this horse motif, for instance. It's adapted from an ancient artifact in the Inner Mongolia Museum and crafted using leather carving techniques. I don't believe intangible cultural heritage should be locked away in museums. It should be worn, enjoyed, and brought into everyday life.
Well, I think each piece is very versatile. You can both wear them up and wear them down, making them the perfect way to elevate your look with an auspicious touch.
Many designs are multifunctional, like these convertible earrings, perfect for a low-key office look that transforms into a party-ready statement piece with a simple attachment. They can even be worn as a necklace. East meets West? Absolutely. I call designers like myself cultural translators, not just borrowing elements, but truly reimagining them.
那祝大家马年吉祥，马上如意。
All right, let's now catch up with business news. Rama is here with the latest.
Thank you very much, Peninah. Here's what's happening in the world of money. Goldman Sachs sees a flurry of deals for South Africa as the economy is benefiting from a combination of structural reforms and a rise in commodity prices. And Africa's largest airline, Ethiopian Airlines, is reporting a 14% rise in half-year profits. Let's start in South Africa. Goldman Sachs says it expects a fairly busy year for South Africa, at least as far as deal flow is concerned, as a result of its own structural reforms and a rise in commodity prices. Chief Executive Officer Simon Denny told Bloomberg that the company is expecting activity right across the board this year, with mining continuing to be a big focus. Platinum prices, for example, they've more than doubled in the last 12 months, while gold is up around 73%. And that's spurring a whole host of deals, like the merger of Anglo-American and Teck Resources. There's also, of course, a spin-off of Valterra Platinum, formerly Amplat or Anglo-American Platinum, from its parent company, Anglo-American. South Africa is a key producer of both metals. The central bank over there says it sees GDP growth at 1.4% this year, rising again to 1.9% in 2027. And both of those figures are a slight improvement compared to current levels. At the same time, President Cyril Ramaphosa has outlined plans to turn South Africa into a vast construction site, to modernize infrastructure and raise economic growth rates to as much as 3.5% by 2030. In East Africa, Kenyan aviation workers could go on strike next week, disrupting operations at airports across the country. This comes after their union gave 7 days' notice to the Civil Aviation Authority. Now, it's not yet clear how many workers will take part in this strike. The union's grievances include what they describe as the Aviation Authority's failure to wrap up negotiations on a collective bargaining agreement, a CBA, and the placement of employees on temporary terms for roles that it says should be permanent. In a statement, the Aviation Authority said it is speaking to the union to try and resolve the issues it had raised amicably. It added that for now, there's no disruption to ongoing operations. Still in aviation, Ethiopian Airlines has reported half-year revenue went up by 14% year-on-year. That rise is being attributed to a combination of factors, including the introduction of new destinations, more flights, and the addition of 7 new aircraft. Its CEO, Mesfin Tassir, told a press conference that the state-owned carrier recorded $4.4 billion in revenue in the first 6 months of its fiscal year, which starts on the 8th of July. Africa's biggest commercial carrier has a fleet of 147 aircraft at the moment. Just last month, it announced an order with Boeing for 9 787 Dreamliners amid growing demand for long-haul travel. The company also officially started construction of a $12.5 billion airport in Bishoftu last month. Officials say it will be Africa's largest airport once it's completed in 2030. The government in Ethiopia is working to ensure the success of its many industrial parks. Over half of the country's export earnings in manufacturing are now derived from companies in these zones. Many of them, however, were recently developed using debt facilities. Despite the success, experts warn that their returns are not strong enough to meet the loan repayments. Becca Atoma reports from Addis Ababa.
Over the past decade, Ethiopia has heavily invested in developing and expanding industrial parks as a means to attract foreign direct investment and fuel manufacturing and export-led growth. Today, the country has more than 20 industrial parks and special economic zones, which together produce over half of the country's manufactured exports.
Bole Lemmi Special Economic Zone on the outskirts of Addis Ababa is one of Ethiopia's key manufacturing hubs, hosting more than 35 factories. One of them is Galila Manufacturing PLC, a shoemaker with the capacity to produce 2,000 partially handmade export quality shoes.
I started by preparing raw materials. Over time, I learned from senior colleagues and developed the skills to operate this machine. Now I work independently. Factories like this don't just provide jobs, they also teach valuable skills. They also pay better than many other factories, and I believe I benefit in many ways.
Industrial parks and special economic zones are becoming central to Ethiopia's manufacturing drive, according to the Industrial Parks Development Corporation, which administers 14 industrial parks and special economic zones.
We have more than 300 investors, where 40% of them are foreign direct investment, especially from China, India, and other countries, where we are able to export more than 1.5 billion USD dollars of worth of exports from these industrial parks. We created tens of thousands of jobs. Currently, we have close to 90,000 employees in our parks, active employment, that means. So in the past 6 months, we were able to export around 112 million USD worth of goods to US, to Europe, and other countries. So if you consider the export share, it's more than half of the overall the export from the manufacturing sector.
Ethiopia's industrial parks development was largely financed through external funding, and the Industrial Parks Development Corporation says they are now generating positive results that can help repay those loans.
The investment was huge, so this was financed by different financial institutions, loan from these institutions. So we are expected to pay that loan through renting and leasing of our land for investors. In that sense, we are doing a good job now. In the past 2-3 years, we have a positive growth.
Some experts, however, disagree. They say that while industrial parks are boosting the economy, they are not yet earning enough to repay their loans, leading to a change in the government's borrowing strategy.
The government has clearly announced since the homegrown economic reform program started that it's not going to take non-concessional lending, because mostly the non-concessional lending that came, for example, for industrial park development and others did not really produce the return it needed to pay back the commercial loans in time, which put a strain on the overall debt sustainability of the country.
Across Africa, development financing patterns are shifting, with reports showing a sharp rise in multilateral lending.
Increasingly, countries, when they were bilaterally, going into the commercial loans, that was very, damaging to their debt sustainability. So they sort of reverted back to more concessional. I would not say they don't want bilateral lending. If a bilateral, creditor is willing to make the loan concessional, of course they would be happy to take that loan. They don't have anything necessarily against the bilateral, the loan being bilateral.
Dr. Tedros lauds Ethiopia for shifting focus from the lender to the type of loan. Beka Atoma, CGTN, Addis Ababa.
Now then, Mali has announced plans to create a state-owned firm to manage the country's holdings in mining companies. According to a statement from the government there, the firm will be called Sopamim. The move comes as the West African economy says it plans to increase its share of revenues from mineral resources. Now remember, Mali is one of Africa's largest single gold producers, with several international mining firms active in the west and the south of the country. Mali introduced a new mining code in 2023, which expanded state and local ownership of mines to at least 35% from 20%. The new code also increased tax collection. It's helping to push up state revenues from gold mining companies by more than 40% in 2024. Other resource-producing countries in West Africa, like Niger and Guinea, they've also been managing their assets through similar state-owned mechanisms. And finally, a bit of a positive story for you. In a city that's long been associated with checkpoints and conflict, Mogadishu, Somalia's capital, is striking a rather different note. One that rolls, rattles and sometimes ends in a strike. Shaped by decades of war, Somalia's capital is now seeing small but symbolic signs of a recovery. And for many young people and returning members of the diaspora, that change is landing in an unexpected lane. CGTN's Kenyan tells us how.
At the Peninah bowling centre, balls glide down polished lanes and pins crash to the floor. A sound once unimaginable in a city where public spaces were largely avoided. For years, Mogadishu's social life was on pause as conflict and militant attacks forced residents indoors and drove millions from the city. Now, improved security, growing private investment and a steady return of Somalis from abroad is helping bring normalcy to life here. Among those rolling the ball is Houdin Abdi, surprised to find recreation where she once expected restrictions.
I am happy. Today I came to Peninah to play bowling. I couldn't believe Mogadishu has this place, and I'm enjoying. Actually, Mogadishu is safe. I went to a lot of places for entertainment, so I love my country, alhamdulillah.
Abdi says the experience has changed how she sees her homeland, and she's encouraging others to come and see it for themselves.
I am telling you guys to come and enjoy our country. It's beautiful, safe, a lot of entertainment, and see our people. So everybody has to come back to our country.
That sense of surprise is shared by Abukar Haji, visiting from the United Kingdom after decades away. He arrived expecting fear, but found familiarity instead.
When I was flying from UK, I believe it's a scary place, dangerous place, like in a war countries, it's very dangerous place. I was very scary, and everyone said good luck to me. But when I came here, what I saw my eyes, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here. Because this one really is a happy life, everyone happiness. The people are very happy. There's no scary. There is what I believe, and today what I saw is my different. I was away for decades in this country.
Behind the scenes, the bowling alley is also creating jobs, giving young Somalis more than just a place to pass time.
When we saw that this business has an opportunity and that many young people need a facility like this, that's when we opened this bowling center. It has created employment opportunities for at least 40 youths, and thank God, I believe Peninah's bowling has filled the vacuum.
Security remains tight, with checkpoints and guards still part of daily life, and the threat of militant attacks far from gone. But for many residents, the chance to unwind signals a psychological shift, a stark reminder that recovery isn't always announced with grand openings. Sometimes, it simply rolls forward, one frame at a time. Kenyan, CGTN.
We'll leave it there for the time being, but here's what's coming up at the top of the hour. In global business, African policymakers are calling for a unified position in the conversation around critical minerals. We'll explore that idea and have the latest from the South African mining indaba in Cape Town. Details on that and lots more at 1800 GMT. For now, though, back to Peninah for the sport.
Thank you, Rama. You're watching Africa Live. Coming up in sports, we'll have the latest news from the Winter Olympics in Italy coming in sports news shortly.
How would you create your legend? On the field,